I found this book at a vintage outdoor shop and I wanted to share it with you. It is so feminine and it's called Let Me Be a Woman by Elizabeth Elliot. Forward 1976. A strong southwest wind blows across the harbor this morning, whipping the lilac bushes and honeysuckle in front of the cottage and sending the gulls steeply upward when they seem to mean to go down. The masts of the moored sailboats tip and swing, and the gray water flashes with white caps. There's no sound but the wind, the crying of the gulls, and once in a while the bellboy, muffled and far away. It is a good morning to write you, Val, better than the first 2 mornings I was here, for they were beautiful sunny mornings, and I went across the road to the beach and walked with Macduff. He raced joyfully along, his square muzzle sweeping the sand for new exciting scents. Then he would stop, his gay Scotty tail and pointed ears erect, his nose lifted, every nerve a quiver as he waited for me to catch up with him. When off he would tear again. You know how he does. Yesterday afternoon, I found a quiet place on the sand, out of sight of any house, and sat with my back against a smooth granite rock. You were to have come with me to the Cape, but wonderful things have happened to change that, and instead of being here, you are with Walt. It was blissful sitting in the sun, looking out toward Nasset Beach across the harbor, thinking of your happiness. He will leave you today, I know, and take up his duties as a minister in Louisiana. And then you will leave for England to study, but you have had a few days with him, and when you are engaged, such days are unspeakably precious. You and I will have 4 or 5 weeks together between now and your wedding day, 11 months hence, and we will talk, but I know that there will not be time to speak of all we would like to. So I write you these notes. You know, I'm sure that the notes come not only out of my own experience of marriage, they come out of a lifetime, most of which has been spent single. I have been married, you know, only for a 7th of my life. They come out of being a woman and seeking to be a woman for God. The attitude with which this effort began is summed up in the prayer of Betty Scott Stam, copied into my Bible and signed when I was 10 or 11 years old. Lord, I give up all my own plans and purposes, all my own desires and hopes, and accept thy will for my life. I give myself, my family, my all utterly to thee to be thine forever. Fill me and seal me with thine Holy Spirit. Use me as thou wilt. Send me where thou wilt. Work out thy whole will in my life at any cost, now and forever. Next chapter, a new perspective. This book was written at the height of the strong feminist movement that swept through our country in the 70s and 80s. Women were told that they ought to get out of the house and do something quote-unquote fulfilling. They listened, and many discovered what men could have easily told them, that by no means is fulfillment necessarily to be found in any job, in ditch digging or in the office of a CEO, any more than in the kitchen. I know that real satisfaction and joy comes in response to the acceptance of the will of God and nowhere else. So I wrote a book as my wedding present to you, putting down in black and white the great eternal principles that distinguish men from women. 23 years ago, Valerie, you became the bride of Walter D. Shepard Jr., who grew up in a missionary family in Africa. In accord with the scriptural injunction to be fruitful and multiply, God graciously gave you the high privilege of becoming the parents of 8. Walter III, Elizabeth, Christina, Jim, Colleen, Evangeline, Theo, and Sarah. I am fascinated as I watch the dynamics between these children, so different from your experience as an only child, 10 months old when your father passed. The shepherds mystify, nettle, and charm me. I am their greatly blessed grandmother now. Everything I've written in this book has in one way or another, I suppose, been tested and found helpful for you, although in some ways no doubt wanting. I have watched you learn to be a wife. I was with you and Walt in the hospital when you first became a mother. I dying 1,000 deaths as you suffered and Walt cheering you on. I was there 3 years later to weep with you and Walt as I held in one hand your tiny little Joy who died before birth. God has assigned to you the position of a pastor's wife, first in the Cajun country of Louisiana, then in Mississippi, California, and now South Carolina. I have watched with awe the grace and insights God has given you in training, nurturing, disciplining, and homeschooling the children. At times we have together been asked to speak at women's conferences. Your wisdom has often helped me as I try to answer the stream of marital and child-rearing questions that come to me through my radio broadcast, Gateway to Joy. We seek to encourage women to cultivate a gentle and quiet spirit, to learn to see Christ in their husband, to love and honor them even when they seem not to deserve it. Let us not forget that Christ laid down his life for us, and we in turn are to lay down our lives for each other. Fathers and mothers are given the awesome task of making saints of their children, but this cannot possibly be done first by godly example and then, line upon line, precept upon precept, by discipline administered with love and prayer. When you are overwhelmed by all that God has required of you, when he let you be a woman, read Isaiah 41:10-11. Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. January 26, 1999, Magnolia, Massachusetts. Next chapter, The God Who Is in Charge. When Walt came to me at Christmas time to ask for your hand, I said to him, there is no one to whom I would so gladly give it. Then we talked of the long wait you will have if the waiting date was not to be until after your graduation. Do you think you can stick it out? I asked him, when he answered without hesitation, ma'am, I'm a Calvinist. He knew that I would understand what he meant by that. You and I are Calvinists too, in that we believe in a God who is in charge. We are not for one moment of our lives at the mercy of chance. Walt saw the timing of his proposal, his own graduation from seminary, your graduation from college, as among all things that work together for good to those who love God. He saw the pattern of duty that lay before you both and took it to be the will of God, so that the power of his own emotion to weaken his resolve was not a threat. He knew, as a psalmist knew, my flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. I am grateful that God has given you a man like that. And so this book goes on to many chapters, and I'm reading it now, and it's just so feminine and timely and old-fashioned and vintage and beautiful and antique. And should you decide for me to continue reading chapters at a time, let me know in the comments below. But what I've read so far, I hope it blesses you, and let me know how so.